Bismillah.
The need for greed.
Want some bacon?
No, man, I don't eat pork.
Are you Jewish?
No, I ain't Jewish. I just don't dig on swine, that's all.
Why not?
Pigs are filthy animals. I don't eat filthy animals.
Nicolas Cage recently revealed he doesn't eat pigs as their sexual behavior is undignified, and you become what you eat. So how much more important is it to eat lawful and healthy food with God's blessings? Such is the ethics of halal meat. A study in 2010 reported that 20% of all lamb in the UK is consumed by Muslims, boosting business in national farms. With more public places and restaurants switching to capture this market, it's inevitable that some will feel alarmed. Unfortunately, the openly Islamophobic media's current rant targets halal meat as barbaric, but ignorance will not do. This Spanish Inquisition-style censuring mirrors how pig-eating Nazis incited hatred against Jews before World War II. The motto learned was never forget, as Hitler first dehumanized Jews to justify all the atrocities that would ensue. Ironically, kosher shekita is practically the same as halal dahibba, so trying to ban halal slaughter applies to kosher too. Recently, halal and for that matter kosher methods of animal slaughter for meat have been criticized for being cruel. The UK's Farm Animal Welfare Council said stunning animals before slaughter is more humane, but let's probe this before dismissing God's rule. Vegetarians choose to leave meat out of their diet, whereas some vegans refuse all animal products, even leather shoes. But our teeth and digestion are created to process meat and vegetables, like chimps and bears, who are omnivores too. Muslims believe God created Adam and taught him what was good or bad for man, including his diet, divinely regulated, with guidelines on permissible or halal foods and the care of livestock with dignified methods of slaughter dissipated. Adam was not only the first man on earth, but he was knowledgeable about nature, raised livestock, and planted seeds. And Allah gifted man the ability to utilize this world responsibly, including kindness to animals, praised as a good deed. The Prophet, peace be upon him, exemplified and urged kindness to animals under our care, and narrated such a dignified behavior too, such as a woman being rewarded with paradise for quenching a dog's thirst by collecting water from a well in her shoe. Yet another woman was damned to hell for deliberately starving a cat to death by tying it up to a stake in the ground. A camel miraculously complained to the Prophet, peace be upon him, that his owner overladen and beat him, so he was freed unbound. He, peace be upon him, told another man to return a chick back to its nest after seeing the mother bird flapping her wings in anguish, and he, peace be upon him, forbade the use of live animals as target practice and forbade cruelty to animals or letting them languish. Muslims are required by God to be kind to animals and not to take their lives unnecessarily and abhor cruelty as seen, such as hanging and beating live dogs to death for food or skinning live cats for fur or blood sports, not fun but mean. Islam also forbids caging of animals, animal fights for entertainment, and branding domesticated animals on the face. Even though dogs and pigs are considered najis or impure to consume, Muslims must still treat them nicely with grace. For humans are God's representatives or caliphs and must care for Allah's creatures as a duty that's never neglected. At the offset, barbaric and time-saving business practices that go against proper Islamic guidance must be rejected. God's advice on slaughtering animals for meat is the most humane, and no sane Muslim can bear an animal writhing in pain. German scientists proved that with halal slaughter, animals lose consciousness by monitoring deep probes in the brain. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Allah has enjoined goodness to all things, so if you kill, kill well. And if you slaughter, slaughter well too. Use a sharpened blade and spare the animal suffering, so a quick, relatively painless death is the dignified thing to do. Whereas the so-called civilized way of stunning by electrocution or retractable bolt gun to the head induces real pain. Some stunned animals revive to be processed alive, and perky bolted ones get screwdrivers inserted to pith their brains. If a ship is launched by invoking "May God bless her and all who sail in her" as a blessing and to avoid calamitous harm, then how much more important is it to bless animals whose lives we take for food? Such is the dignity found in Islam. Arab Jews and Christians accept Allah as the proper name of God, akin to the Hebrew Elo or Elohim, added for praise. The issue is not reciting Allah's name over the sacrifice, but rather the intricate details of the slaughter are raised. Jews use paid-up rabbi butchers or shockets to inspect the knives, salting and discarding meat too difficult to devein, whereas any Muslim who prays can slaughter an animal by saying Bismillah Allahu Akbar, halalifying it in Allah's name. Halal and kosher slaughter methods are essentially the same. In fact, Muslims can eat the meat of Christians and Jews. Just in case it came in contact with shellfish or dairy produce, strict Jews don't eat halal meat, but instead they refuse. For Muslims and Jews take the killing of animals for food as a ritual of worship, blessing the slaughter in God's name. Before Muslims eat, they say Bismillah, or in the name of Allah to thank Him, and don't take animals' lives in vain. In implementing as much of the Sunnah or methodology of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I'll recount my own personal report. To jointly celebrate the birth of my daughter and Eid al-Adha, I was privileged to slaughter 2 sheep I had bought. I led one to the abattoir so its fellow sheep wouldn't see it suffer, and whilst eating fodder, the other was held back. Patting it until it was calm, I lay it gently on its side, with its head facing Makkah, whilst the blade I hid behind my back. I felt for its neck veins, and with a razor-sharp knife I said Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and for a quick cut I endeavored, just like a paper cut that isn't felt until blood oozes out. The sheep didn't flinch initially until its windpipe was severed. As a macabre side point, slitting forearms with a razor and bleeding to death in a bath is a popular method of suicide. After a relatively painless cut, draining blood cuts oxygen to the brain, causing a coma, but hell awaits on the other side. Although it looks like it's still alive and thrashing, skilled butchers realize it's a natural consequence of death's throes. Eventually, as its spasms ceased and most of its blood had flowed out, it was hung and processed as the butcher knows. The second sheep was then led out from its holding pen far away from such sights and sounds, and the process repeated. Such sacrificed animals will gather to you on the last day with their hair, horns and hooves intact as a reward greeted. We do not fully understand the spiritual ramifications of halal meat in the unseen due to our limited comprehension. For example, leftover bones of halal meat eaten by saying Bismillah transforms into meat for jinn in their parallel dimension. Being fully aware of what is good for us, Allah has set up dietary rules and has forbidden certain foods in the Quran. These include the meat of already dead animals, blood, except the liver and spleen residual, swine flesh and its harm. The draining of all flowing blood is ordered as it is a carrier of disease and poisons, and nutritionally a very poor drink. Yet some Christians make sausages out of pig blood, but truly Allah only grants wisdom to those who reflect and think. Both the Old Testament and New Testament forbid pork and blood. Jesus himself never ate swine, and when he returns he'll kill every last one. That pigs eat anything, including poo, rape and cannibalize, carry worms and disease, should be reason enough to shun. But the real reason why Muslims don't eat pigs is because Allah left that as a test for us, as He tested Adam and Eve. Just as they were forbidden from eating one particular tree in paradise, so we abstain from pork, and in God we believe. As a side point, a few scholars allow the use of tanned pig leather or their bristles in brushes, but not to eat any part. Most consider byproducts such as pig gelatin as haram, yet others say life can be saved by pig transplants in hearts. The New Testament mentions Jesus exorcised a legion of devils from a man who then possessed 2,000 pigs and drowned in the sea. A hadith says Jesus said, "Go in peace" to a passing pig. So just because we don't eat pigs doesn't mean we treat them cruelly. Also forbidden is meat sacrificed on altars of false gods or as an offering to them without mentioning Allah's name, as is meat obtained by strangling, a fatal blow, a headlong fall, gored by horns or partly eaten as a carnivore's game. The exception is if your hunting dogs or birds of prey return with an uneaten live animal to kill it using Allah's name, or when starving to death to eat enough of otherwise forbidden meat such as pork to preserve your life without any blame. Meat from the sea, including shellfish, is halal, whereas the meat of carnivores with talons, claws or fangs is haram. But Muslims can, with rules, eat meat of the people of the book, or Ahlul Kitab, and even marry their women in Islam. Some Muslims raise the objection that the Jews and Christians of today are not like those who existed in olden days, but this is incorrect, for the Quran is a book whose rulings are valid till the end times, and we accept what it relays. However, some general rules still apply. So, for example, dishes containing pork or alcohol or cooked in shared pots are not allowed. And besides, nowadays halal meat is widely available in all major cities, just like kosher, over which Jews are avowed. Another concern is the uncertainty of slaughterers being Christians or Jews. As Western lands are religiously diverse, meat becomes forbidden from other than the Ahlul Kitab, ranging from Hindu to atheist according to Quranic verse. Using these rules, Muslims are forbidden from eating, for example, dogs, snakes and eagles. Donkey meat is also expressly banned. All bloodless insects are forbidden except locusts, but all herbivores, including rabbits, fall into the permissible band. Horse meat is termed as makruh or disliked, for unlike cows, horses were created to be ridden on by noble distinction. Islam eases the burden of an unnecessarily strict Jewish diet, whereas St. Paul removed all of the Old Testament's restrictions. In order to keep kashrut law, strict Jews have 2 sinks, fridges and utensils to separate dairy products from meat, whereas most Christians are so far detached from what Jesus taught that they'll ingest anything with a bon appetit. The dilemma facing Muslims is whether or not modern methods of slaughter are ethically acceptable as halal in Islam. So stunning by electrocution, bolt gun or firearm, or gassing which causes the animal to die before slaughter is haram. According to Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimullah, if such methods are used, then, before slaughter, the animal must be verified as alive. So in countries like the UK, where stunning in abattoirs is statutory, Muslims should be careful of such a compromise. The problem arises when unscrupulous profiteers disregard the dignity of halal slaughter and endanger all concerned, taking inhumane and unhealthy shortcuts by which critics wrongly blame Islam. But from this, lessons must be learned. So killing a sheep in view of others is un-Islamic, as is beating it, or using a blunt knife to hack at its neck prolonging pain, or to play a Bismillah tape instead of the Tasmiyah. In fact, ones who don't pray shouldn't be allowed the privilege in shame. As for a Muslim country importing meat from abroad, Shaykh Ibn Baz, rahimullah, said the government is responsible for its checks, but in lands of the people of the book, their meat can be eaten unless found to be haram, e.g. by strangling of the neck. Some choose to live on fish, seafood and vegetable alternatives, but they are unnecessarily making their diets unjust. On the other hand, there are extremists who refrain from eating meat from halal butchers too, claiming lack of trust. Once, a group of convert Muslims brought a meat dish to the Prophet, peace be upon him, who advised, say Bismillah over it and eat. The rule being that if a person is a Muslim, you are not required to inquire as to the particulars of the offered meat. As for Muslims who decline from eating the meat of the Ahlul Kitab for piety's sake, then upon them there's no blame. Yet, as it is an allowance or rukhsah from Allah, Muslims who eat it mustn't be ridiculed either, or made to feel ashamed. The Prophet, peace be upon him, advised to avoid grey areas, like a shepherd prevents sheep from straying onto another's field to feed. He also said, leave that which makes you doubt for that which does not make you doubt, for the safety of your creed.